So as Lynn mentioned, I am the Farm to School Coordinator for New London County, and I work for a small nonprofit called Fresh New London. And our mission is to build momentum for food system change. And so we do that through a number of channels, through education, we do that through empowering youth, and we do that through connecting communities. And our vision for the future includes a just, sustainable, and healthy food system. So recently, one of our big strategies to work towards that is through our Farm to School program. And what is Farm to School? So Farm to School is really any way to connect students and families to local agriculture. You can do that through education, through purchasing local foods in schools, through taste tests, through school gardens. So there's three core elements. School gardens, which connect students right on site to growing opportunities, connect students to the land, introduce new foods, really sort of create this outdoor edible classroom for students where they're getting experiential learning opportunities and really making the connections. Local foods procurement is exactly what it sounds like, serving local foods in schools, and that can be through distributors or through connections with local farmers and direct purchasing, which is something we really promote with our program. And then nutrition education, because we have to create the demand. Sort of like the last two presenters were talking about, education is really key. We can create all these great programs, have all this great services, but if people don't know about it and don't use the programs, then they're not really worth doing. And I'll kind of get more into the particulars of that in our county if we have time. But why Farm to School? Really, we're talking about sustainability here, and I think Farm to School is a really sustainable way forward in the holistic way we think about sustainability. So certainly it's environmentally sustainable. We're reducing our carbon footprint by buying from local farms and not hauling food across the country. But we're also working with small farms who are using sustainable practices, who have diversified crop plans and who do crop rotation. We also think about it in terms of economic sustainability. So when we're buying local food from local farms, we're supporting small family businesses. We're keeping money in our communities. We're also creating jobs as we increase the amount of acreage planted for schools. We're creating jobs through processing, which Erin will talk about, to preserve the harvest and sort of serve it later in the school year, and creating jobs through technical assistance to get our local producers and schools and wholesale institutions ready for local food. And of course, we're creating health. We're promoting healthy foods, we're letting kids and families know where their food's coming from, and we're just sort of creating those connections that people know exactly what's going into their food and skipping over the processed foods whenever possible. So our project in New London County is sort of a unique partnership. So in 2013, Ledge Light Health District applied for a USDA Farm to School Support Services grant, and they received $100,000 to do this work for 2 years. And they convened stakeholders from the New London County Food Policy Council, Fresh New London, and the Ledge Light Health District's Achieve New London County initiative, which is a health initiative across the county. And together they hired a Farm to School coordinator, created a steering committee that meets monthly, and convened a Farm to School Advisory Council, where we bring stakeholders together from all areas of Farm to School: farmers, parents, food service staff, students, since they're the consumers, community organizations that are really focused on this work, and anybody who really wants to connect can come together through our advisory council, and we share best practices, we share struggles, we address barriers right on the spot, and we make the connections that actually make these programs grow within individual districts and throughout our county. So some of the things that we've done in New London County, so through this advisory council, we've done a lot of data collection. We've talked to folks about what the barriers are and figured out ways we're going to address those barriers. A lot of the barriers of serving local food in schools have to do with transportation, seasonality, and the amount of food grown in Connecticut. And we're really focused on fruits and vegetables in our project, but a lot of Farm to School programs also serve local milk, meat, eggs, cheese, and even bread, although the wheat's often not grown on site. If it's produced locally, we consider it part of our Farm to School local procurement program. So through that, we've actually been able to connect farmers to schools, and 10 districts are now purchasing directly from our farmers in New London County. We've been able to introduce 13 producers to the schools, and they are now selling food to schools, and they're expanding their operations to sort of include more wholesale and more diversified income streams, which has been really great. And the farmers that we've been working with 2 years ago, I don't think ever would have thought that wholesale was their market at all. We have 2-acre organic farms, we have 80-acre farms who've been doing wholesale for a while, and all of them are finding their place in this farm-to-school world, which is great. We've piloted a project to work with Erin and her processing kitchen in Norwich to increase the capacity to process for 4 districts, 6 crops, and we're sort of piloting this and looking how we can expand processing throughout our county. We've convened school garden educators. We found that school gardens are fantastic, and they're a wonderful way to connect students to local agriculture. They often are formed by 1 teacher in isolation or 2 teachers. Someone gets really excited about it, and the programs sort of stay right within that, and a teacher leaves and maybe they end, or a teacher sort of gets to a point where they don't know what else to do. And so what we're doing is bringing all those folks together, and they're sharing best practices. They're ordering seeds together. They're understanding how to do irrigation and what to do in the summer, because that's a big challenge. So that's been really great and a really helpful way to sort of make these school gardens sustainable. We've also created a mini grant program for school gardens, and we gave away 10 $500 mini grants in our county to help school gardens either get started or make additions. And for nutrition education, we created the Harvest for Schools Harvest of the Month program. And this has actually been a really great way for schools who never did farm to school before to get into farm to school. So once a month, we're asking these schools who participate to purchase something locally, put it on their menu, promote that they're doing that, and send some nutrition education home. So schools who never thought that they would be able to purchase locally for whatever reasons, you know, the number of barriers that they saw, thought, oh, I guess I could just purchase kale this month. That's not that hard, right? And so, oh, I guess next month I could just purchase broccoli. That's okay, that's not that hard. And all of a sudden, they're doing farm to school local procurement, which has been really great. And then the Youth Ambassador Program, as our last group mentioned, high school students don't listen, right? And we hope they listen to each other. So our Youth Ambassador Program creates an opportunity for students to come to Fresh New London, learn about local agriculture, sort of get trained in empowerment and leadership, and then bring these projects back out into their districts, and they're the catalyst for change. And so we've got some pictures here, like this up in the corner here in Colchester. They started this program with the Harvest for Schools program. These 2 students right here were like this huge catalyst for change through the Youth Ambassador Program. Now they serve something locally every month. They started a school garden. They started composting in the 2nd grade. I mean, it's just amazing what these young people can accomplish when they get the fire to do it. What's that?
They had everyone behind them in their city.
Right, and they got everybody fired up, exactly. Like they went out and talked about it and got this wonderful backing behind the project. So it wasn't me coming in and saying you should do this. It was some students getting everybody fired up. And then it sort of cuts off, but the last one just really talks about our network. And sort of speaking of things that have been done, I'm gonna let Erin go next, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about what we want to do going forward. Thank you.
Hi, I'm here to speak about the processing kitchen and procuring local produce for Norwich Public Schools. In 2013, we received a State of Connecticut Department of Agriculture viability grant for $49,999. That was to be used to start a processing kitchen so we could take in farm produce from our local farms and process it, and I'll explain that in a second, for later use in this school year. We also take in fresh produce that we distribute to our 11 schools, so it can be used right then and there, so we're not buying it from vendors, we're buying it directly from our local farmers. Where am I? Our food service department, we actually matched the funds that was part of the grant, so our department also put in $50,000 minus $1 to do this. With these funds, we were able to buy a new double steamer to process, also a reach-in freezer to put in the processed products, a vacuum sealer so it doesn't go bad, as well as a blast chiller to bring down to health requirements, the temperatures, so we don't get written up and don't have to throw things away. We've also used the money to purchase this Veggie van, which is what we use entirely for farm use. We go out, this is the vehicle we go out to the farms with. We pick up as much produce as we can at that time and bring it back. That way, we're not trying to do it with someone's car, with the vehicle that we'd be using for other reasons. This is entirely for the farms. This is a very small view of our processing freezer. What this is, this is corn that we got from a local farmer. When I say local, no one is more than 15, 20 miles away from our school.
And the corn farmer is next door.
Literally, he is around the corner from the processing kitchen. The processing kitchen is, or was, an underutilized school cafeteria kitchen that after hours, we have the product, we have staff come in, and they will actually process. Process is meaning, here's 500 pounds of beets. That was a surprise one day. This is the general setup. There's 500 pounds. It's like every stage of it, what we do. When I mean process, I mean clean, shuck, cut. There's no chemicals, it is steam or nothing. It also means that we cut it into sizes appropriate for our schools to use. We also bag it, so we know that a lot of these things are crops that the children aren't used to. So we bag them in servings that are, say, 25 servings for the school. I don't want you making 100 when you know you'll only go through, say, 20, so that cuts down on the waste of what we would have been putting out. We have 11 schools in our district. We distribute to all of our schools based on size. It is very time-consuming. It is labor-intensive, and you have to find the right people to do this. I personally was part of this from the startup, so I know exactly what has to be done. I was the one going out to the farms to get it, and then washing it and bagging it and all that. So I can tell you everything and anything you need to know about it. You have to have people committed to do it, because otherwise you're going to have stock that's just going to be thrown away, and then you're wasting your money and your time from going out there. Back to this slide. This is corn that we got, like she said, corn around the corner. We've done this walk-in freezer has now evolved to an outside freezer that we will fill up with stock to make the runs worth it. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of pounds of produce that we don't need to buy from a vendor. We're buying it directly from our neighbors, and it goes from the farmer to the school, right to the children. There's no middleman in this. We have used the products that we have used are summer squash, zucchini, green beans, different color beans, winter squash. I mean, the list is right there. I also base my menus on what we have. If we have an abundance of squash in the freezers, we'll have squash on that menu. I'm not going to waste what we have. We're going to use what we have and base everything off of that. The children at first were kind of leery, but now this is going into our fourth year doing this. And since we got the younger children, they don't know any different, so they're more accepting of what it is. They don't question anything anymore. They're just like, oh, okay, sure, which is big versus no. I guess that's it. Oh, but we are expanding, our processing kitchen. Come on.
So Erin and I work really closely together, so knowing where one starts and the other stops
Right.
is tough, but you can go ahead.
We're expanding it to serve a bigger population, where we're hoping it to come into a food hub where other districts can buy their produce and come to us, have us help them process it to cut down the cost. They provide help, and then we return it back to them. So we're not the only district benefiting from it. we're doing it for our neighbors now also. But that's still in the very early pilot stage.
And just a couple of great things that have come out of that. So this pilot project for expanding this kitchen that we're learning lots from, we're buying 24,000 ears of corn, 2,000 pounds of green beans, 1,500 pounds of both winter and summer squash, and 500 pounds of cauliflower and broccoli, although we'd purchase much more of those two crops if they were available from the farmers in our county. So we're really making a significant dent in the amount of foods served in our school that are locally produced. One other point I wanted to hit on really quickly that Erin was talking about, as the food goes out and the students are like, oh, what is that? So another thing that we've done through this program are tastings in the cafeteria and the classroom. So produce tastings are a really great way to introduce this stuff. So you go into the classroom and you get really excited about summer squash and how you're gonna do it, and the students vote on if they like it and they really participate. Then when they see it in the cafeteria, they're not like, wait, what's that? Do I like it? I don't know. And it's just an easier way to sort of make that transition. Yeah, now I think questions would be.
Time for a couple questions. Up to the mic, please. Bruce?
By cutting out the middleman, have you experienced a sort of a measurable cost savings in all of this?
You want to take it?
I'll take.
Okay.
No. I end up paying my staff to do it. So whatever cost I would have, it's gone with staff. But I do go.
And the freshness of the food and the good food getting to the students as opposed to a cost savings.
A lot of kids don't even realize it anymore. They do take it, I'll say that, and it doesn't go in the garbage. That's the best I got for you on that one.
Well, and I will say, that yeah, it's not, there isn't a cost savings, but buying local, you're often paying more money for your produce, and so it's actually just making it balance out, as opposed to costing more money for some of these local products. So buying, for example, unwashed produce allows the farmers to reduce their cost a little bit, and even though you're paying staff on the other end, the schools are having to wash the produce anyway. So I would say it's more of a cost balancer.
True. And a lot of the farmers are more apt to, if it's someone local and they know it's going to a district, they'll kind of almost give you like a break, because I'm willing to go pick it up. They don't have to bring it to me. I send the truck out to get it. So that's one less cost on their end. So they're willing to kind of cut us a little bit of a break on from that.
Another question, Mallie?
I'm interested in how you motivated the town to pay your time in the startup costs. Was it the grant from DEEP that suggested to them that this was a good idea? Because, in fact, the town invested a lot in your time to get this program going. And you're a passionate person about it, and you would have done it anyway, but now it sounds like you're expanding the staffing of it, and that's a town budget decision, correct?
No, I'm self-funded. So whatever is paid out, it's out of my department. My town has nothing to do with it.
So an interesting thing about food service budgets that most people don't know, they don't often take any additional funds out of the education budget. So they pay for themselves through USDA funding streams and the cost of school lunch often. And so the food service directors are actually facing a lot of pressure to make that those books balance. They're almost essentially their own restaurants. In a sense. So they have to have students buying lunch, they have to make sure all of the paperwork goes into the USDA and that they meet the criteria for all of this work. But after that, they actually have the flexibility, if they have any surplus funds, to pay staff to process or to, fuel the van, those kinds of things. And some of the larger districts are actually able to do that.
Okay. I just also want to leave you with the comment of commending you on your vision of becoming a food hub. That's one of the hardest things that small states, small agricultural states have to deal with, is how do we get at economies of scale by bringing in other communities, and I just think it's really important and valuable that you're doing that work. Thank you.
Great, Joyce? This will be the last question for this session.
Quick question. My assumption is that in your food processing kitchen, you have volunteers?
Paid employees.
They are paid employees?
Yes.
Okay, because you said you have to have a certain type of person who's
You
willing.
do. You have to have someone who's willing to be paid and work.
Okay, right. Right, okay.
Because we've gone through people who want to get paid, and they will do as little work as possible. Because they think that it's off their work day, that it's just easy money, until I show up, and then I say either you speed it up or you're getting half of what you should be paid.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Okay, great. Let's have another show of appreciation. Thank you so much.